Okay, so my friend Jeremy is coming up my stairs right now, and he has told me that I'm going to have some kind of reaction to what he's carrying. Oh my god. Okay, so this looks like it was hanging on a bus station wall or something. I'm looking at it.
That's most of my decor, actually, is hanging from old bus stations.
So when you say you collect maps, Jeremy, you're not kidding.
Welcome to the Streets.mn Podcast, the show where we highlight how transportation and land use can make our communities better places. Coming to you from beautiful uptown Minneapolis, Minnesota, I am your host, Ian R. Buck. Many of our podcast team members enjoy attending Nerd Nite, where anybody can sign up to present about whatever topic they are passionate about. Back in February, we were delighted as the presenter took a historic map of the Twin Cities and used clues on the map to narrow down when it was produced. As it turns out, our producer, Sherry Johnson, knows the presenter, Jeremy Stomberg, and he was down to come onto the show and talk about it. So let's jump in.
And we're here with Jeremy Stomberg. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the different hats he wears. First of all, this super weird guy helped start Convergence, an annual convention for fans of science fiction and fantasy, where he does remain a minor celebrity, including a very nice performance in the latest Taskmaster that we do there.
I was robbed.
You were robbed, actually. He also dons the persona of John Maddening. That's where I met him. He did 14 seasons, announcing for Minnesota Roller Derby, 6 Women's Flat Track Roller Derby Association World Championships, 12-ish regional playoffs in the first World Cup in 2011 in Toronto for roller derby. So it's kind of a big deal there. But these days, he's actually a rakish ring announcer for Minnesota's best-kept secret, First Wrestling. He also trolls NIMBYs, bigots, and misogynists on local social media channels. We thank you for your service, Jeremy. But we're talking to him about today is his bragging about his knowledge of local history in particular. He collects historic maps of St. Paul and talked about it at the lovely Nerd Nite. Jeremy, welcome to the Streets.mn Podcast.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you were to date this map, you'd be looking at there.
I literally just opened this last night.
Okay.
I don't know, but let's see. So right here, where St. Paul College is now, it just says vocational school. Oh. So the question is, when did St. Paul College become St. Paul College?
So you'd Google that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's Miller Hospital, which is where the History Center is now.
Oh.
So that was, again, late 80s, early 90s was when that swap took place. Ramsey Hospital right here before it became Regions. So again, yeah, so probably mid 80s.
Oh.
Early 80s maybe.
This looks pretty ratty for a minute.
Well, you know,
this is a well-used.
It's up on a wall somewhere.
Well loved. This looks like something from my grandparents' garage.
Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I would look for.
So, Jeremy, when I first met you, it wasn't actually as an announcer for Minnesota Roller Derby.
Okay.
You were the intimidating nerd at Dreamhaven.
Oh, wow.
When Drew drugged me there to buy some comics.
Okay.
When would that have been?
January of 1996 through June of 2003.
Oh my God, you worked there a long time. So
3, yeah. So it's like 7 years.
Yeah. So just for our listeners, if Jeremy's voice sounds familiar, it was probably that nerdy guy that you felt intimidated by at Dreamhaven back in the day at Dickeytown.
Yeah, and then I grew up. So.
Right, because the next time I saw you as the announcer for Minnesota Roller Derby, you were deeply, deeply embedded in localism. Mm-hmm. You were passionate about gender equal rights. You were passionate about transportation and housing. You take people to task about it on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. What is it about this place, Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, that you love so much?
Well, I mean, I'm from here. I mean, I live less than 10 miles from the hospital in which I was born. It sounds weird, but I've traveled a lot. and around the U.S., around the world. And I think that what I like most about the Twin Cities is its potential, more than I like a lot of the stuff that has happened and will happen. Mm-hmm. Like, just the very idea that we had, for nearly 60 years, one of the greatest public transportation systems in the world, and it's gone, except it's not gone. And you can, if you drive certain streets, as they crumble before they're milled and overlaid, you still see those tracks that 70 years ago were just, somebody put a layer of tar over them. Mm-hmm. And the tracks from the Twin City Lines streetcars are still there. And technically could still be, you could still run cars on them if they're not too warped. Just thinking of how, for a ridiculously low sum, you could travel on a streetcar from Stillwater out to Minnetonka, and then when you get out to Minnetonka, you can take a ferry boat that is part of the system out to an amusement park on mm-hmm. Big Island on Lake Minnetonka, and everywhere in between. Thinking about how the most useful current lines, both the light rail lines and bus lines, are basically where the most useful streetcar lines were back in the day. Mm-hmm. The number 6 line and the number 3 line are basically the Como Harriet streetcar line. And the fact that it is still very useful for, both of those lines, granted they're split up now, but it's still very useful. It's not as great as it could be. I don't know. It gets frustrating because I know that I have all the answers, but I'm not in a position to, and I'm joking. I don't actually think of myself as that, but I do. I like the potential of the cities, and mm-hmm. I think that every time I visit somewhere else and I see something, it's like, oh, this reminds me of what Grand Avenue could be.
Right.
Or this reminds me of, if we did a little bit of investment in X, we could have this in St. Paul, or we could have this in Minneapolis or Columbia Heights, or wherever the heck you want to go.
I think some of this is calling, I asked you, what was it about the Twin Cities that you love, that draws you to localism, that makes you so passionate? Mm-hmm. And you talked a lot about potential. You talked a lot about this desire to make it more vibrant, this desire to make it available for people to try things. Mm-hmm. It's no wonder that you'd be interested in the minutiae of maps.
Yeah. Looking at how things used to be and kind of seeing how things could change in the future. Mm-hmm. From simply something as simple as closing a grade crossing over a railroad in a neighborhood to make it, safer for folks to travel, to just a wider idea of changing where a street goes. Mm-hmm. On my way over here, actually, I dropped my wife off at work in downtown Minneapolis, and then came back on University, and there's the old firehouse that's now a Buffalo Wild Wings over by the Gopher football stadium.
Yeah.
And I just noticed for the first time, and I worked in Dinkytown for a long time. I lived over there for a very long time, and I had never noticed on this building, there is set into the bricks, there is a concrete signpost that's University Avenue on one side and Oak Street on the other side, on one corner and one corner. And then I just realized, Oak Street must have gone straight by this way before it was moved for all the various stadiums and arenas over there. Yeah. And I wonder when that happened. So when I took a picture of it so I'd remember, and then when I get home, I'm going to go look on historicaerials.com and just kind of go back, see all these aerial maps from the last 100 years, and kind of see when that happened. And it's not like I'm writing a report about it or anything, or writing an article. It's just more of, this is something interesting. I want to take a look at it. I'm interested in when this happened, and will that change my life in any way? It's like, no, but it's something interesting.
Yeah, but at the same time, when you are involved in any kind of community organizing for change, people always say, well, this is always the way it's been.
Oh,
this
sure.
is the way it's always going to be. And it's very easy to fall into that mentality that nothing ever changes.
Yeah.
But you just named a significant change that has happened very recently. What other neighborhoods have you lived in, and what small changes or big changes have happened in those neighborhoods?
I guess really because it was so Stevens Square in Minneapolis, in that little neighborhood. I lived down in like the Wedge neighborhood. I lived in Uptown, like actual Uptown, not uptown, like some people kind of pretend the entire southwest quadrant of Minneapolis is uptown.
Because they want to say they live.
They want to live in uptown.
Yeah,
It's like people who live in Brookfield say they live in Chicago. You know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, or in Summit Hill that say they live in Crocus Hill. When really Crocus Hill is like a 2-block radius, like multi-million-dollar house.
And then right before I moved to St. Paul, I lived 23rd and Como, basically. A lot of those places, because they are kind of established, so there's not a lot of change that has happened. Then I moved to St. Paul. It was very exciting.
And what makes St. Paul better than Minneapolis?
Well,
you want to go on record here?
What I like to say is that St. Paul is like Minneapolis, but for people. You know, this is where there are people that get so up in arms about it. It's a different city, it's a different vibe, and that's fine. Tommy Mischke, who used to be on AM 1500 for a lot of years, he used to call it big time Minneapolis, good old St. Paul. And that's kind of the way I like to think of it too. I feel like you, in my time around you have accumulations of stories about place that contributes to this sense of how much of a localist you are. You also talk a lot about individual humans and particular places and memories you have in those places. Where did this localist loyalty begin? Was there a formative experience or an accumulation of them? I don't think so. I think it's just my parents taught me to read at a very early age, and I thought it was pretty heckin' cool to just go to the library. And we had a great library by us, and I would get like the Tintin comics, and Tintin is a Belgian boy reporter, and he travels around the world, and seeing all these kind of ligne claire, which is the European style of comics, depictions of faraway places was extremely interesting to me. Like any child of the 80s watching the Indiana Jones movies and seeing the red line on the maps, and this is where the far-flung place he's going is always just, you watch out, you get a copyright strike if you hum too much, right?
I know, I've got to be careful.
But yeah, just I don't know. It's there was no aha moment for it in general. I think the maps thing came from probably sometime in the early 2000s. I was at my friend Bob's scooter shop called Scooterville over in Minneapolis, and he had a giant map of the Twin Cities metro area, and I was just looking at it, and I noticed that 169 kind of ended above the river. And I was like, oh man, I do remember my parents taking us to Valley Fair, and we didn't go over 169. We went all the way out to Chaska and crossed on 41. And sometimes in the earlier spring you couldn't, because the river was over the road. And so that got me interested in when did that, because I grew up not in Bloomington or Shakopee or Eden Prairie or out that way, so I didn't really pay attention to giant construction projects. And so it was more like, oh, let's look and see when that bridge came in, and how that kind of changed transportation in the Twin Cities, how that helped that area really grow as a residential area, because people who work in, closer to the central core could live out there and not take an hour and a half to get into the city anymore by having to go over on 41 or coming up on Highway 13. So I think that was my first map.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this. I'm going to check it out. And granted, at that time, it was 10, 15 years prior. It wasn't, 20 years, 40 years, 100 years.
So I'm also sensing some nostalgia, right? Well, when I used to go to Valley Fair. Mm-hmm. So, okay, you see this map, you think about this, it sends you down a rabbit hole of curiosity. What's the first map you remember picking up, and were you aware when you got your first map?
Oh, no.
I'm a collector now?
When
was the moment you're like, oh yeah, and I'm collecting?
Because I used to be a big comic collector, like comic speculator kind of person. Every issue was boarded and bagged, and I wanted to keep everything in pristine condition. But after a while, I thought that was dumb, and decided that I cared a lot less about condition and of the media that I was interested in, and more of the content. Mm-hmm. So like now I still get comics, but I get mostly like collections. Mm-hmm. I don't care about getting, I need the first printing of the first issue of this. I'm more interested in reading the story. Right. And the same kind of thing happens when I go to a secondhand store or an antique store and find a cool old map. Because I have a lot of varied interests. I'm curious about a lot of things. I don't focus really on any one thing. So when I go and I see, oh, this is cool, this is an old map of Minnesota, I'm gonna take a look and see where this road used to go, where this highway was. My friend Michael Drivas, who owned Big Brain Comics in downtown Minneapolis for a lot of years, when he opened his shop back in 1996 or 7, he had a grand opening party, and he sent out, because this is, again, the mid-90s, he sent out paper invitations to people. Mm. And the invitations, he found an old map that basically it told people how to get there by using all of the main highways, which were not the interstates, which was not 35E, it was not 35W, it was not 94. It was, you can come up here on Highway 55, you can go up this, you can go over that way. And you could still use those maps today. You can still travel that way. There's a little niggling difference where the freeways get in the way. Mm-hmm. But it was just kind of cool to see how people traveled from place to place without the freeways.
All right, so what are your favorite places to find and research old maps?
Well, I mean, just wherever I travel, in the cities, in greater Minnesota, anywhere around the world, if I see a little antique shop, I'm going to go in and I'm going to look for postcards, I look for maps. I just, I sometimes am I feel like I'm that guy who shows up to the toy store at opening time, and I'm looking for a particular Hot Wheel or a particular Star Wars figure. And I'll walk into this antique store and they'll say, "Oh, you're looking for anything in particular?" That's my old person voice, by the way.
Yeah. That's clear. It's very good, yeah.
And they'll say, "I'm just looking for any kind of old maps of Minnesota or the Twin Cities." And they'll say, "Oh, yeah, this person has some in this booth, or this person has some in this booth. Oh, we don't really have much of that." And say, "Okay, cool. I'm out of here."
Right.
I might swing by if they have some old James Bond soundtracks on vinyl. I might swing by their records and check that out. But
there's those many interests.
Yeah. If you're a member of the State Historical Society, you can go to the Ordway Library up in the History Center. My old landlord was part of the Borchert family, which there's at the University of Minnesota, there's the Borchert Map Library.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of places to access. There's plenty of people and organizations that have maps that you are able to check out, to look at, to examine. Or again, just swing by, grab an old Amico highway map and kind of see what was different, see what's the same.
Yeah. You talked about gas station maps in this presentation quite a bit. What's so special about gas station maps?
There were so many of them. You could swing by a gas station and get a free map.
Oh, like these are the things that my mom would yell at my dad to get when he got lost.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just there are these little. For those who are not watching, because this is not. I have a standard oil map. It's like 4 inches by 8 inches.
Yeah.
And folded up, and it's just it was on the counter. And you went in and you paid for your gas and you got yourself a snack and said, oh, I'm new to this area. I'm going to grab this map.
And you could meaningfully mark them up.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's difficult when you don't have reception, if you're in like the Driftless region or if you're up in the Rockies. But if you have a paper map, you can still, we went on a massive family vacation in the 80s where we headed out to South Dakota and then down to Colorado and then over to the Grand Canyon and down into Arizona and back around, and we hit 12 states, and we had the big Rand McNally giant road atlas.
I would sit with that on the back side. Yeah.
But then every time we got to a new city, swing in, grab a map of the city, and then kind of figure out where we're going in the city while we're in that particular town.
And you would ask things of the cashier, like, hey, where do you get really good barbecue? And then they would give you some meandering way to get there, and you would actually find it on the map you wanted to.
Yeah, I have these vivid memories of my dad asking at the counters, how do you get to this place?
Yeah.
And the clerk at the gas station would tell them, and my dad would have a pen, and he'd just open the map that was on the counter and write it up. And
my dad was too proud for that. He waited until he was in the car afterward, and then he interpreted and wrote on the map.
That's how you get lost. That's
right. And it was, I can assure you. But we did find some good barbecue that way. So in your presentation, you turned historic maps into something that felt like a trivia game. There was audience participation feeling. Even you said, you called it "When the Heck Was This Map Made Anyway?" How'd you get the idea for this?
So I had done a couple presentations at Nerd Nite before, and the organizers had asked if I was interested in doing another one. I said, yeah, I have 2 ideas. And one just took a lot more research than the other. So I did this one instead, which was to make it a little more interactive, because a lot of these presentations are just people talking at the audience.
Yeah. You kind of threw some overall principles for map date sleuthing. What were some of those principles?
Basically, it's context clues. It's if you know when something was built or torn down, it's fairly easy. Places where there have been major street renovations, often for things like sports arenas. The area around the Viking Stadium has been that way since 1980. How the streets kind of curve around it, but before that, those streets went straight. There was a lumber yard there. There was a nursing school, St. Barnabas, that was down there. The same with Target Center. Target Center, it did have that weird corner building, that little wedge building that has the Irish bar and the strip club right across from Target Center. But there was another triangular block that was across the street from that, because 7th just kept on going. The area around the NHL arena in downtown St. Paul, which is changing names right now.
Yeah.
Formerly XL, now going to be the Grand Casino Arena. That actually was a huge deal, because they were building 35E at the time as well. And they totally changed the streets around there. So they moved West 7th up a block. So what is now 7th Place, that was where 7th Street went straight through.
Oh, sure.
And they did that so they could build the old Civic Center back in 1969. And then they tore that down and built the XL Center in 1999, I believe.
So you kind of have these like dates in your head of when these major renovations happen, and those your eyes are attracted to historic maps for those. I heard you say hospitals
are a big thing, just either in names of hospitals or the fact that they exist or don't exist. Miller Hospital, which is where the Minnesota Historical Society, the History Center is right now, that was torn down in 88, I think. I heard about that when I was at a wedding at the Wabasha Street Caves. One of their cute little tour guide things was, did you know there's a whole hospital inside these caves? And I was like, wow, a cave hospital. That's crazy. And what they meant is most of the debris, most of the concrete and bricks and stuff was just buried there. They just tossed it in these caves because these caves are pretty unusable because of how airflow works around there. It's not like the caves along the Mississippi where they, it's easy to access. It has a constant like 50 or so degree temperature, great for storing beer or during Prohibition, storing cheese in front of the beer. But if you see a hospital that is on a map that is not there anymore, then you can think, oh, when did that hospital move? Sure. Or when did that hospital change its name?
And certainly highways.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well. Highways, when, because we had 94 go through first, and then we had the first vestiges of 494. Highway 100 used to be called the Belt Line. That went where Highway 100 is right now.
Yeah, this blew my mind. Yeah. Did it really go all the way around?
It wasn't as easy as it is now. It wasn't like the 494, 694 loop where you could just stay on it and not actually...
Was it the same imprint, though?
No.
No,
it's basically it's where 100 is now, and then it turned east along where 694 is now. It went way out to like the Hugo, White Bear Lake area.
Oh, like near 61?
Yep. And then went south, and because there was no Mendota Bridge, you had to go on these weird little that old swing bridge that's down there now. And yeah, it's pretty wild. I think you'll probably be linking to the YouTube link to their presentation. Yeah, I show a map on there of that. Now I'm rethinking the question earlier. We used to go to a drive-in as a family called the 100 Twin.
Yes. And
why was it called the 100 Twin when it was on 694? Because when it was built, that was 100. And they just never changed the name to the 694 Twin because 100 Twin just sounds cooler.
It does. Although you have to go Twin. Oh, Twin City. Okay, got it.
Yep. It was not at the time. So when I started going, it had two screens. But when it was built, it was one screen, but it was still called 100 Twin. Why? Because Twin Cities.
Oh,
not for a twin
right.
theater. Yeah.
So, yeah, I imagine that seeing drive-ins on maps is a pretty tear-jerking.
Oh my God, there were so many. There were so many, and so many. There was one down where basically 494 and 100 are right now. There was one in Roseville at the northeast corner of County Road C and Snelling. There's so many things that were here for either a fleeting amount of time or an extended period of time, and each one of those clues helps you a little bit. And you can shrink your window by a little or by a lot. Curtis Field, the first airstrip in Minnesota, is basically on the southeast corner of Snelling and Larpenteur.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a park there that's called Curtis Field. Curtis after the aircraft manufacturer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport is there because the Army airfield was there. And the Army airfield was there because the Army base was there. And the Army base was there because it was close to Fort Snelling.
I feel like you and Wolfie Browender need to get together because he's the guy for Streets.mn that does the place names. Too.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So that maps and place names.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you think of a time you had a favorite aha moment when looking at these maps? Was there one that you just had to run and tell your spouse about?
No, I know better than that. I think it was there was a ski jump I mentioned in the map out Battle Creek over by Mounds Park.
Yeah.
There was a ski jump on this map that I saw. I was like, when the hell was there a ski jump over by Mounds Park? And it was actually, I thought, this is going to be so difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to be able to find this forever. But luckily, it was like the first thing that popped up on a very cursory web search was this very old, like Web 1.0 site of photos from the ski club that ran at this.
Where was this? Have you kind of run over where this thing was?
I haven't
in Battle Creek.
Maybe I will. Yeah, here we go. Battle Creek Park. So basically, Afton Road, where it crosses. What is this little?
Is it Ruth?
No, it's a. There's a little river here.
Okay.
But it's basically, if you extended White Bear Avenue straight south, you'd probably run into it. So Upper Afton Road and White Bear Avenue.
Huh.
So maybe I'll just drive out there today and take a look.
There's a little ski jump. That's wild. I think there's houses in there now.
Probably, yeah.
Or it's like there's houses and then it's on the backside or something.
Yeah,
I'll bet it's when you go up to the top of the ski hill in Battle Creek West, and then there's like this weird, wild, super hilly area behind there.
There's, it just how much of the cities that was fairly wild or, had a different use, like Woodbury over the last 20 years is amazing because just of how much farmland has been changed to housing. I mean, I'm still shocked that 33 years later, there are those two farms just to the east-southeast of the Mall of America that are still there. It's wild. I remember going down there as a kid. I didn't hang out in the South Metro a lot as a kid. But when I went out there when the mall opened, I was like, this is crazy. How is there still a farm this close to the city?
Yeah.
And it's like
that must be a really good farm.
Yeah. Cuz my house is just south of Lake Como. And it was, when we did the research on it was the farmhouse for a 140-acre farm that was outside of the city of St. Paul, city limits. And the city just kind of expanded over the years. And it eventually got all the way up to Larpenteur and just kind of took over. And so this particular house was built in 1885. And that was kind of like nearing the end of the farm because the next oldest house is a block over and a half block down, and that was 1893. And the farmer that owned this land had sold a little land to a person that wanted a lake cabin. And the lake cabin outside of the city was at Lake Como.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's still the woman who owns it today, she's just put on new siding, but it looked like a log cabin. It was pretty wild in the middle of the city. The reason that Como Avenue is diagonal like that is it is coming from the city, which was the downtown area, and it was coming straight up to the planned resort community.
That's right.
Around Lake Como, which at the time was Sandy Lake. An a guy named McKinty bought a lot of this land with partners, and wanted to make an out of the city kind of community.
I have a question about that. Do you happen to know if that had anything to do with trying to evoke like the Italian Lake Como?
It's named after Lake Como.
Really?
It's named after the Italian Lake Como.
A resort place.
Yeah, which is why I heavily push back against these people that call it Como Lake.
Oh.
I'm a stickler for a lot of things. And when somebody will post about Lake Como, and someone on a neighborhood Facebook group, and someone will say, "Oh, it's actually Como Lake," and I have to go and post pictures from some maps that I have.
Internet?
Someone's wrong on the internet about where Uptown begins and ends, and whether it's Lake Como or Como Lake. And the answer is Uptown is from 28th to 31st, from the lakes to DuPont. That is it. And it is Lake Como. It has always been Lake Como. It will always be Lake Como, except for when it was Sandy Lake, and before that, when it was unnamed by settlers.
Yeah. All right. So I'm sure our listeners are rapt with attention at this point.
Oh, I'm sure they haven't turned this off.
Jeremy, why should people care about old maps? Really?
Because it's fun. It's time travel. It really is. If you're interested in looking at old pictures of places that either no longer exist or that have changed, it is a way to kind of look and see what used to be. Just, was it yesterday or 2 days ago, the city of Boston posted online a picture of a Chipotle. And it's an older brick building, and it said, "There's utility work being done today on this street in front of the Chipotle where Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense."
No. Oh my God.
And it was probably done in jest, but people just jumped on. It's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe!" And these buildings have, old buildings have had a million different tenants over the years.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's always fascinating. We were in Cardiff in Wales, and there's this beautiful white marble building, and it's now a KFC.
Yeah.
It's just the reuse of classic buildings, the renaming of streets over the years, the moving of streets over the years, the massive urban quote unquote improvement that has been done, changing the way that the city works, sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. It's just fascinating. It's really interesting. And the old axiom of those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Right.
It's not necessarily that you're going to save the world by looking at something, but it can be interesting to see how something worked or how something didn't work and why people at the time thought they had to change it. The Gateway District in Minneapolis, anything where you used to have something that was a centerpiece of city pride, and granted it was Skid Row by the time that they changed it, but really did tearing down all these buildings and changing the way the streets were laid out, blocking Nicollet Avenue from the river, blocking it with a giant building. Did that solve anything? No. It just changed things.
Yeah.
And change can be good, change can be bad, change can be neutral. But it's just very interesting to look at.
Has this worldview kind of shaped the way you've looked at the whole debate around I-94, whether to keep it, get rid of it, change it?
I think there are two...
There are just so many of our listeners who are into this.
In an ideal world, I think that I forget what it's called. It's not Abolish 94, whatever it's called, the Rethink 94 project. In an ideal world, I think it would be a great idea. However, I think that people in general...
To get rid of
to make it a big boulevard and
yeah.
But I think people are unfortunately set in their ways. And there's so much, and I try not to travel on 94 when I have a bunch of different options. But the fact remains that it is the fastest way in most cases outside of rush hour and special events to move between the cities. And especially for someone that is, coming from Woodbury and going to Maple Grove, for instance, are they going to turn up on 694? That's going to add to the pressure, the number of vehicles that are on 694. Will 694 have to be widened? No, let's not widen a freeway. That way lies madness. That's Atlanta. That's Houston. Those are, you can't just widen your way out of congestion. It doesn't work. But I think that there are things that can be done to massage it rather than to completely change it. And it puts me in this weird middle position. But there's great arguments on both sides, which is why somewhere in the middle is where it's going to have to be. It's I can't even imagine the massive urban, the world's largest construction project used to be the Hong Kong airport, building that island there, and filling in an entire freeway trench for that long just seems like a huge amount of time and a lot of effort. And granted, it's only really been around in complete since the mid 80s. So there's plenty of people in the world that remember it without it being there. But I remember too, there's another map project that I just did on my own because I read about one of the alternative routes for it was north, basically the BNSF line that that's basically just north of Pierce Butler. And so I just went on the Google Maps, My Maps, and I kind of figured out where that would go. And it had, some parts were smart and some parts were crazy. Like, why would you even, would create an even bigger cluster. There's so much involved in urban planning especially when it's on so many multiple levels, like hyperlocal, local, city, state, county, everything.
Let alone railroads.
Yeah, and the fact that anything gets done is kind of amazing when it comes right down to it.
Yeah, just kind of curious if you had a perspective. Is there anything you weren't able to share in your presentation or here that you wish you could have?
Not really. It's more of like if I had gone through and found even more stuff. But basically, for those that haven't watched the video, and really, why haven't you? It's amazing. Really? I kind of narrowed down when I think the idea of the presentation was you have a map that doesn't have a publication date. When was it printed? And I'm able to narrow it down generally to, a decade or so. And there's a few in there that are like, well, maybe it's within this 3-year span. And I'm sure if I really went into great detail and took a lot more time, I could find something that might narrow it down even more. But it was, again, it's not meant to be my master's thesis. It was meant to be a fun, TED Talk at a bar.
And it was.
Yeah.
It was.
Thank you.
What's yet to discover for you about St. Paul history? Are you still curious?
I don't know. It's I have been wanting to do a do you know Andy Sturdivant?
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to write that great walking around articles. And he did one that was basically walking the border between Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Oh yeah.
And I had wanted to do there's apparently the kids these days. There's this TikTok thing where people walk the breadth of a city.
Oh.
And they walk from north to south or from east to west or whatever.
That.
But I don't know how to use TikTok.
Yeah. Okay, old man.
Yeah. I don't know how to edit. Yeah. Okay. But my friend Brandy Brown was just complaining about a lot of these kids that are doing it in Minneapolis, because they like basically stop in Camden and they don't go any farther north. And it's like, yeah, it's granted, it's just, there's a lot of like industrial and railroad stuff out there, but like, go up. It's only a few more blocks.
So you could be the man who yells at cloud of TikTok.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
I
One of
love
the things
it.
I really want to do is there was a spur of the streetcar line that basically popped off from the Como Harriet line at Eustis and went to the St. Paul campus of the U of M. And from aerial photography, you can still kind of see the scars
Neat.
from it in some place. So on a day that's not super hot or super wet, I just want to walk that. I want to walk that whole stretch and see, and just kind of envision how that was up until the early 50s. A kid going from one campus to the other campus on a streetcar.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so if your game were ever formalized and hosted by dapper local historians, who would be your dream team?
Well, the host would be me, of course.
Well,
I'd have to
but then you
host
can't
it.
play.
I would play it. I think the aforementioned Mr. Sturdivant is kind of a wildly brilliant person who would be able to grab a lot of this stuff very easily. Bill Lindeke, of course, would be a
Father of the Streets.mn franchise.
And just people that, anyone that really shares an interest, anybody that wants to come on and compete would be super fun.
Yeah. Maybe that's your future.
Oh yeah, that'll be that's very,
It's very,
I'm sure that has a wide
very
appeal.
lucrative. All right, Jeremy, where can our listeners find you and connect with your many passions?
I'm on Blue Sky at John Maddening, all one word, on Instagram at John.Maddening, because I used to have the at John Maddening, and then I forgot about Instagram for a very long time, and then I couldn't remember my password. Again, old man problems. You can find our wrestling shows at First Wrestling. That's at F1RST Wrestling on all your favorite and least favorite social media platforms. We'd love to get off Twitter, but people are hanging out on Twitter. It's still necessary to advertise, unfortunately. But you can check it out other places. We do cool, fun, ridiculous wrestling shows all over. We do stuff at breweries. We do stuff at First Avenue. We're doing a show at the library in Oakdale next week. We do a huge show at the Mall of America every September. And if you have ever thought of pro wrestling as something less than what you are interested in, just come to a show.
Everybody
it's ridiculous.
needs to check it
It's
out.
ridiculous. You know what? Pro wrestling has always been, it is a live action stunt show with a soap opera element. And it was a very misogynistic, very homophobic space for a very long period of time. And over the last 20 or so years, especially in the independent wrestling scene, there has been a lot of forward movement. And is everything perfect? Absolutely not. But in our little aspect of it, we try to make it very welcoming to anyone who just wants to come in and see a fun little show.
Yeah.
A lot of queer people, a lot of marginalized people from everywhere turn to wrestling like they turn to comic books, very like good versus evil fights.
That's certainly how I
You
feel.
can see an outer space frog beat up on a giant Australian possum.
And with that, I think we'll say goodbye. Thank you, Jeremy.
Goodbye to you.
And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Streets.mn Podcast. Speaking of Nerd Nite, several members of the Streets.mn Podcast team are going to be presenting in the near future. On August 13th at 7 p.m. at the Black Heart, they will have 5-minute lightning talks where Jeremy, Sherry, and I will be presenting. And then in September, we're starting up a Minneapolis branch of Nerd Nite. So on September 23rd at 6 p.m. at Eat Street Crossing, you can see presentations by Brian Mitchell about the history of the railroad trench that became the Greenway. Stina Neel will present about how dating simulation games have made her a better communicator. And I will present about the logistics of bike touring. So I hope to see you all there. The show is released under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Non-Derivative license, so feel free to republish the episode as long as you are not altering it and you are not profiting from it. The music in this episode is by Eric Brandt and the Urban Hillbilly Quartet. This episode was produced by Sherry Johnson, edited by Sherry and I, and transcribed by Stina Neel. We're always looking to feature new voices on the Streets.mn podcast, so if you have ideas for future episodes, drop us a line at podcast@streets.mn. Streets.mn is a community blog and podcast and relies on contributions from audience members like you. If you can make a one-time or recurring donation, you can find more information about doing so at streets.mn/donate. Find other listeners and discuss this episode on your favorite social media platform using the hashtag Streets.mn Podcast. Until next time, take care.